with the Sofi Stadium roof behind me. Brought to you by Brymac, who sends me on the road, and Edleys BBQ that sponsors this podcast. I hope you can hear me well enough. I'm Paul Kuharsky. This is the Paul Kuharsky podcast live from SoFi Stadium. You can see their sign maybe there? No. Hard to find a great spot here because the luxury boxes are so luxurious that they lock them and you need a key card to get in them. So I'm on kind of this plaza, which is quite nice. Unlike the result you saw today, which was another Titans fiasco on a wobbly table here. So good to see you on a lovely Los Angeles evening. I am in open air here. I see many of you have been conversing here for some time already. Retweet, let people know that you're on here, and bring them along, as a lot of workers from the stadium call it a night. And walk by. There we go. Sorry about that. Reset the Wi-Fi. What's on your mind, everybody? Disappointing. Look, they can't stand toe-to-toe with that team. 7 sacks given up, no sacks. Just didn't have any answers. The game slips away. Murray isn't really supposed to be in coverage on that first touchdown pass interference play that kind of setting him up. Levis was better than he'd been. They didn't turn the ball over. So that was nice, but they don't turn the ball over, and they're not really competitive. That last touchdown certainly counts. It's a 10-point game, but it was garbage time. And Chargers just kind of handled them. I felt like kind of toyed with them at times. Better football team, better defense, better offense. Titans giving up a 56-yard return again. Just can't figure out what they're doing there. And things are just a mess. So I froze for a second. I am back. Mr. Paul has a home. I will cover him. Lewis Chesney doing a lot of talking here. TK raised a good point here. Like watching the Chargers today reminded him of the Titans under Vrabel. It's not pretty, but they do all the small things that matter. Vrabel's best teams played like that, and Harbaugh is unsurprisingly a Vrabel-esque coach. 8 wins in 3 years, some going back to November 13th of 2022. They're 0-7 from that point forward. They were 6-11 last year, and they are 2-7. Now I may have miscounted by a loss there. So it could be 8-25. Really a miserable football team. At this point, you just look for improvement. And what improvement did we see today? Ridley, is getting substantially better. 2 touchdown catches, had a game-leading pass receiving yardage, 84 yards, I think, which is the best anybody had in this game. 84 yards, yeah, and a 16.8 average, though Ladd McConkey topped that. But, I mean, that's good for the Titans that he is getting better. Jarvis Brownlee is having some problems right now, which is not good. But at least he's getting through some of the lapses, right? Some of the bumps and bruises that a rookie needs to get through. So hopefully, that pays off for him in the long run. Will Levis didn't turn the ball over today. He actually had good numbers overall. Will Levis, 18 of 23 for 175 yards. He took 7 sacks, but he threw 2 touchdown passes to Ridley, and he didn't get intercepted. That's a 127.4 passer rating. I'm sure that's his best this year. And so that's reassuring. And, people wanted him to come in. I certainly said he needs to come in and kind of pick up where they left off in terms of 400-yard games and playing a better and more efficient offense the last two games. A win over New England and obviously a blowout loss to Detroit, the first half of which was not meaningless, but the second half of which was. Brandon asks if Levis is ever going to take responsibility. I mean, I think he took some responsibility. Some of the sacks were his fault, and he said as much, and his coach certainly said as much. And a double play away says that he was here and that Levis needs to throw the ball. He held the ball too long, certainly in some instances. But again, his numbers not terrible. And he didn't turn the ball over, so that's progress. Special teams just, atrocious. Julius Chestnut actually got some yards, averaged 30 yards on 2 returns, a 32 and a 28. And Jackson had a 27. So those kickoff returns are not terrible. Punt returns, they didn't get to bring anything back. Fair caught 2, and 1 was downed. And they didn't do any damage, the Chargers, on punt returns. But that kickoff return, 56 yards, just brutal. I don't know why they can't figure out anything there. Colt Anderson is just, I don't know. There are no answers there. Just ridiculous. Overturned fumble was garbage. So let's talk about that for a minute. I mean, I thought that it seemed like he was pushing the ball with his hand, and there's never any clarification on this. Is that by rule? If you're pushing it with your hand, still a pass? It seems like you have to have control of the ball. But the explanation that the director, vice president of instant replay gave was that they're going through angles, and there was an enhanced angle from the broadcast that they could see the hand coming forward. That means the hand coming forward empty. Again, we're going frame by frame, and the hand was coming forward with control of the ball, and then he lost control of the ball. So, I mean, I didn't see that replay, but I don't have a great TV in front of me from here. CW says before his hand went forward, the ball was starting to come loose. Was not enough there to overturn. TK, I think, talking about my column, decided this team isn't, or you decided. No, I decided this team isn't worth wasting air on. I don't know. I just wrote something different. I was sitting, and I didn't really have a game-related idea, and I think you guys are sick and tired of kind of reading about game details, and it's not my objective to really write game details. And so I didn't write about game details. Not much. I kind of wrote, one example of an unfortunate thing. CW says the Texans ain't getting into the Super Bowl this year. I know a lot of people that were picking them to get into the Super Bowl. I think some of us thought they had the second or third best chance. Oh, you're responding to Lewis, who said it could be a Super Bowl preview. What's the score of that game? I think that they have spied on some quarterbacks. I think they've spied on some quarterbacks unsuccessfully. And Herbert had effective runs, 9 for 32 yards. But, I mean, that's 3.6 yard average. So he did kill them with some first downs. But it wasn't like he had a tremendous amount of rushing yardage against them. So I think Herbert, smart quarterback who did smart things against the Titans, who just aren't smart enough team to get things done. This was just such a I don't want to say confounding loss. It's just like it's so similar to so many other losses. Like you just pick what you want. All right, today the sacks were bad, the penalties were bad, the defense at big moments was bad. And so, and the one big return was bad. You let them drive 95 yards after you pinned them inside the 5. They did not, by the way, when they drove 95 yards, face a third down in that drive. The Chargers. I mean, that's ridiculous. It just, I don't know where they go from here. Minnesota is not, as good as they were, but certainly good enough to come to Nashville and beat. Titan Kong calls bullcrap on that fumble call. It should have been ours clearly, but no, they can't let the Titans have anything nice. Remember the infamous Josh Dobbs fumble against the Jags. I do not think they come into the game and say, hey, we're not going to give the Titans any close calls. You think they love the Chargers? I mean, the Chargers have nobody in this stadium. It feels like, between half and 3/4 full. They're not making pro-Chargers calls. So, I mean, I think it's an unfortunate call that goes against the Titans. I don't think it was like 100% clear. I do think they came out on the wrong side of it, but I don't think there's some conspiracy against the Titans. Like, if you think that the officiating department spends a lot of time thinking about the Titans, I think you're just confused. Bad teams tend not to get calls. On the Herbert touchdown run, Joseph Day and Sweat were so bad it's like they were blind. It's a nice little run by Herbert. Titan Kong says, I have no reason to believe on the Titans' very best day that we couldn't beat this Chargers team. So there's a double negative there that negates everything, and I don't understand what you're saying. CW, I don't know why you name yourself twice. I knew the Titans defense isn't as good as people think they are. Every good opponent, they get demolished. And this defense is not as good. I mean, the Chargers defense is comparable statistically to the Titans defense, and it was substantially better. Then everybody says, well, look at what offense it was playing against. Well, I mean, you only have to judge what they put forth on the field. Which defense would you rather have? I'd rather have the defense that had 7 sacks as opposed to the defense that had no sacks. The benchmark for this team is 17 points. Titan Kong is saying we can't even string wins back to back. Is it too much to ask to win at least 2 games back to back? Apparently, it is too much to ask for that. The Titans' last back-to-back wins. I have this written down somewhere. It'll take me a minute to find. You guys know it? Last back-to-back wins. It's quite some time ago. It might take me a second. I'll get to the next question. October of 2022. So more than 2 calendar years ago. What else we got? What's on your mind? How you feeling? Boy, people are flooding out of here. I'm surprised they stayed this long. I guess they had cleaning up to do, but I don't think this is the cleaning crew. Volunteer Machinery, LLC. Need more time to fill the holes. My confidence in the coaching staff continues to decline. Look, they filled a lot of holes. We need to add a hole at right tackle, maybe, which is proving to fruition. At pass rusher, for sure. Where else was a clear and obvious hole after they spent all this money in the offseason? Quarterback, right? I mean, we knew they were giving a young guy a chance at quarterback this season. This team did not come into this year with like massive holes. The massive problem was depth. But in terms of all of the activity they had addressed 16 of the top 24 spots in the lineup. We shouldn't have come into the season thinking that they needed a whole lot of personnel based on what they added. Now, their ads have turned out to be bad. L'Jarius Sneed hasn't played in a month. Owuzie hasn't played hardly at all. And other guys are getting put in bad situations. Murray was in some bad situations today. Pollard's been great. But Cushenberry's now gone. Sneed's now gone. And some of these guys just haven't been good. Who is the quarterback coach? Winnie the Pooh here is asking. Everyone's talking about the Callahans and the Andersons. Who's the quarterback's coach? Times to scrutinize everybody. Bo Hardigree is the quarterback coach. The quarterback coach ranks below the offensive coordinator, who ranks below the offensive head coach. So you want to scrutinize the third guy in line to deal with the quarterback? You could scrutinize him, but he's the third. He deserves the third most scrutiny. Bo Hardigree is not responsible for Will Levis on the big developmental front. Brian Callahan is. The Hassan Haskins revenge game. So Haskins scored a touchdown. Bud Dupree had 2 sacks and a forced fumble, and Elijah Molden had 8 tackles. Now, I will say this: which one of those guys are you desperate for the Titans to have on their team? Hassan Haskins should be on the Titans for special teams. Bud Dupree you'd take because he's rushing the passer well, but at the time they moved on from him. Financially, it was a prudent move. And I don't know. There are a lot of Elijah Molden love, but I'd rather have Condre Diggs than Elijah Molden for sure. Kong says, I really do believe we're the black sheep of the NFL. There has to be a day where this Titan organization silences all the negative feedback and puts it all on the field and stacks those wins. I just don't think you're familiar enough with the league to think that the Titans are the black sheep. Are you familiar with the New York Jets? The New York Jets signed Aaron Rodgers, and they still can't win. 4-time MVP, and they still can't win. You think you're in worse shape than the Jets? Are you unfamiliar with what's gone on with the Jets? The Titans were the number 1 seed in the AFC 4 years ago. I mean, the stadium here is lovely. It's really nice. It's very complicated. I came in on the 300 level. The seats were 300. I saw section 310. I walked into the elevator bank from over on that side, come across over to this side. It's my 3rd time here. And the seats were 300 seats. And I was on level 6. I don't get that. I don't understand that. I don't know how people figure things out. And I'm sure the Titans took some things, but the Titans place is not going to be like this place. Well, Facebook person saying Titans cast-offs beat their former teammates just shows what a solid quarterback and a great coach can do, something the Titans lack. Well, the Titans certainly don't have a solid quarterback, and their coach hasn't proven to be great by any means. But I wouldn't say that Bud Dupree, Hassan Haskins, and Elijah Molden, to say they beat their former team. I mean, Justin Herbert had a lot to do with it. Quentin Johnson had a lot to do with it. Guys on the defensive front besides Bud Dupree had a lot to do with it. The headline of this game isn't that Bud Dupree and Hassan Haskins and Elijah Molden led the Chargers to victory. That's quite extreme. I don't know if it's clowning the Titans to give Hassan Haskins a carry from the 1-yard line. Lots of teams do nice gestures for guys against their former teams. Kentucky Joe, why would we entertain this if they win out? Could they make the playoffs? They can't win out. That's not possible. Wow, Texans beating the Lions that big is impressive. I will not be home to see the end of that game. Hopefully I will see the highlights. 8 o'clock a.m. Could we challenge that overruling of the fumble? Noticed it was Los Angeles studio and not New York studio. I don't know what that means. It was New York that overturned it. And how do you challenge the overruling? It was a scoring play. Scoring plays are automatically reviewed. So it was automatically reviewed. You can't challenge a replay overrule of something that's replayed. That's already the replay. Los Angeles studio, I don't know what you're talking about. Simmons, by the way, said, he talked to the white hat, which is the referee, and he said he called what he saw and got overruled by New York. Levis is not the problem. That's been established, John Ches said. How is Levis? I mean, he's the problem. He wasn't a problem today, per se, though he held the ball too long. At least 2 of the sacks were his fault. And the Titans get sacked a lot more when Will Levis is a quarterback than they do when Mason Rudolph is a quarterback. It's not to say Mason Rudolph is better or a better alternative or anything like that. Titan Kong says, to be fair, everyone faces their former teams. It's really not that big a deal at this point. It really isn't. I think it's cute. Solid quarterback is everything. That's why everyone thinks Ossenfort is doing a great job right now. Arizona certainly is performing better than I expected. Do I think, William Harris asks, do I think Levis could be salvageable to be a quality quarterback? I doubt it, but nothing's impossible. Fulton did not play today. He was a scratch. He's hurt, unsurprisingly. This is a question I get a lot, stuff like this. Orlando Mirello says, in the locker room, does it feel like the players still have confidence in the coaching staff? It's not something you get a feel for in the locker room. Like, you don't just walk around and get a feeling from players like about their confidence in the coaching staff. And you can ask guys, but they're not going to say no unless you have a really bad locker room that's falling apart and a coach they clearly think is on their way out or they could influence their way out. So, in conversations you have with guys, it's a stay the course mentality amongst the locker room. And that's what they have going on. So there's nobody that's saying anything negative about the coaching staff, publicly or privately, right now. What else you got on your mind? Yeah, I agree with this, CW. The Chargers front is better than any one of the fronts that Mason faced. And the fronts that Levis faced early in the year, the Bears, the Jets, the Packers, were better than the fronts the Titans faced lately. But Levis needs to be doing better against these tougher fronts, as does the offensive line. I mean, it's big boy football. Yeah, Mike says, I know he just came back from injury recently, but I feel they've underutilized Spears this season so far. I don't feel that way at all. I think Pollard's terrific, and I would give it to Pollard all the time. Why do they need Spears? Like, I know they talk about Pollard potentially wearing down in the long run, and that's fine. But Spears came into this game averaging like under 4 yards a carry, and Pollard is terrific. So why do I need to see Spears? Spears is hope. The last 2 games without Spears, before today, Titans ran for 158 yards and 167 yards. The 2 best total yardage ground games that they've had. Last 2 games for Pollard before today, 94 yards and 128 yards. Second best total and his best total. Spears before today, 33 carries for 114 yards, 3.45 yard average with a long of 11. What about that says, use me more, use me more? I mean, He had a good day today, I think, but I'm not real excited about Spears. 7 carries for 47 yards. That's a nice 6.7. And Pollard was 9 for 44. And the Titans only ran the ball 21 times, but they got 132 yards out of it. But I don't know why he needs Spears. Titans didn't even interview Harbaugh. I mean, I don't think you can complain about that. It's clear they were moving a different personality to a different personality than Vrabel. So if you're firing Vrabel, you're not hiring Harbaugh. CW said the same thing. CA says, let's collaborate our way to 2015 flashbacks. Paul, keep asking Callie about special teams until it changes. This is similar to Rubisky and Ackerman. I don't know about that. I don't understand why this. Chase says Pollard is fantastic, but Spears always makes guys miss too. He's a great second option, great depth. He should get 30% of the running back snaps. I mean, I guess you could say that. It's got a long of 19 this year. I mean, he was good today. I don't hate him, but I don't see why you can't just ride Pollard. I don't understand how there's nobody open in 4.5 seconds. That means bad route design or Levis is half blind. So either get Levis contacts or Callahan should watch Ben Johnson route design. I don't know where you think that Levis has 4.5 seconds. Sam Darnold has come back down to earth, TK says. Might be a more interesting game than I thought it would be a month ago. Do I think Amy/Rand gives Callahan another year? Rand's not firing anybody without Amy's approval. If Rand can go to Amy and say we should fire Callahan, that would be an absolute joke because Rand's job should be in just as big a jeopardy or more. I think Callahan's going to be fine. You can't fire a coach after 1 year. It's ridiculous. You've got to have some kind of stability, even if things go badly. I wouldn't say Spears is a questionable Rand move. I would say, like, Spears, if you're drafting Spears and he's your secondary back, I don't know, 3rd round pick, right? Secondary back, 3rd round or 4th round? Secondary back. So you had a guy in front of him. You drafted a guy to supplement Henry. And then a year later, you sign a big ticket free agent to be in front of him again. Is it more fun to cover the Titans when they're winning, Kentucky Joe? Certainly it's more fun to cover them when they're not losing like this. Do I think Jack Gibbons comes back next year? You hope he does. He's been fantastic in your opinion. How far from the line of scrimmage does Jack Gibbons make most of his tackles? Jack Gibbons is not fantastic. I'm not talking draft tonight. Yeah, J.C. Latham is doing a good job. Cheeto and Snead have got to be back soon, Chase asks. Yes, I would think so. No disrespect to Vrabel, but he isn't Harbaugh. Harbaugh actually reached the Super Bowl and was a bad call away from winning it. Everybody's all about bad calls. Then inherited 5-win Chargers and has them rolling. I didn't say he was that Vrabel was Harbaugh. I said he's Harbaugh-like. They have similar coaching personalities. Harbaugh has a better coaching record than Vrabel, for sure. But aren't they allowed to be similar style coaches? I'll answer for you because I'm being rhetorical. Yes, they are. Yeah, Mike Titan Kong is asking, why don't you come back to the team, Mike? He thinks Mike Vrabel's burner is in here. They're not asking Mike to come back. They're not. The 3rd and 3 end zone fade to Wiley is the worst play call of the game. Wasn't terrific. Could throw it better. That's for sure. I've not been in a lot of traffic in LA, to be honest. But I mean, I drove from the airport to the hotel. I got picked up by a friend and taken out yesterday, and I drove today. So not a ton. I haven't been in off the highways very much.
It was like by the time.
How about Leroy Watson with his penalty binge and the way he moved the Titans into range from Nick Folk to miss his first kick of the season, wide right from 49. Leroy did not do a good job at all with the penalties. I mean, it's not survivable. It's not sustainable. Let me talk to you about Edleys. I'm here in Los Angeles. Last night I was looking for some food to order in, and I found some nice food. But barbecue comes up on my DoorDash or my Uber Eats, and I'm like, yeah, I'm coming to Los Angeles. I'm going to order barbecue when the best barbecue place, maybe in mankind, sponsors me. You benefit of being in Nashville. I'm not getting back till tomorrow afternoon. If I was in Nashville tomorrow afternoon, I'd probably go to Edley's. Get the fried ribs or the brisket plate. Both just phenomenal. There's something that barbecue avocado. Get one of the meats on it if you want. 3-bean salad, potato salad, everything there is absolutely awesome. 8 local locations in and around Nashville, Sylvan Park, 12 South, 2 in Franklin at the factory, and over on Paytonsville Road. 5 Points in East Nashville, where I broadcast on Thursdays. Your mouth should be watering just at the mere thought of Edley's. If you're a regular, you're due to go. If you are not a regular, you got to check it out. I know you've probably been to a bunch of barbecue places. If you haven't been to Edley's, you're missing out. Go check it out. You will become a disciple. Tell your friends. Go eat there. Take somebody to lunch. Take somebody to lunch or dinner this week to Edley's. Tell them I sent you. You cannot go wrong. Edley's BBQ, the best place in and around Nashville. 6 picks in the Lions and Texans game. Doesn't automatically make it a terrible game. Like if you like defense and people are making good picks. CA says that the Colt Anderson thing is very similar to Robisky and Ackerman because both did a terrible job and both mics refused to make a correction at the correct time. Now Callie's doing that with Colt. Well, Robisky and Ackerman had a lot longer to prove that they were terrible than Anderson has had. Martin Brady says he's been to the 12 South Edleys. Good stuff. Chase says right tackle is literally unfixable with the players on the roster. They're all atrocious. It's crazy to see how much worse the right tackles are than every other position on the offensive line. They have one potential alternative on the practice squad. Isaiah, is it Price or Prince? I should know that off the top of my head. I do not. Signed him a couple weeks ago. I'm sure they've been working him into shape and would like to get him into position to consider using him. So we will see if that's possible. Yeah, Leroy Watson really, really bad with the penalties. Some talk here about, not having done away with Vrabel. We can go on and on about that. I, too, thought, change for Levis was not the best way to go. I did not love the offensive staff that Mike Vrabel had, and I think that was one of his deficiencies. So I was excited about the potential for an offensive head coach to come in and take over Brian Callahan, but it hasn't clicked yet by any means. And there's a long, long, long way to go with this team. So we'll see. and it doesn't serve a lot to consider where they would be. This team also, Vrabel with this talent, well, I don't think they would have made the same exact acquisitions that they made. But if you dropped them in on this roster, they'd be better than they are right now. So you got to be patient with Brian Callahan. I think that's what the organization's going to do. I think it's a shame that he is left to be accountable for everything. Certainly has to be accountable for the coaching and some of the playing, but the roster assembly is on Rand. Rand's in charge of personnel. We've heard 5 questions worth of answers from Rand through Nick Suss of the Tennessean. That's insufficient response. Amy Adams Strunk hasn't answered a question, as I wrote in my column. Hasn't answered a real question. I've asked her, something soft to get her on camera at owners' meetings, but hasn't answered a question from somebody that's not on her payroll in several years. And I think it's a ridiculous and unseemly strategy from them in terms of accountability. So huge disappointment across the board. Cottage Living 76 I'm having a hard time even seeing a path forward with this team. Where do you even start? Start with the draft. They got themselves some extra picks. You don't know that those later picks really pay off. You're talking about guys like Justin Harrell and James Williams. Are those guys contributors to this team in year 2 in a bigger way than they've been so far? You hope so. But you don't know for sure. Hopefully you can package some of those picks to move up in earlier rounds to get guys that you really love, and do that. So we'll see. Question, I've watched a bunch of Jets YouTubers today. They want to hire Vrabel, but in my opinion, there's no way he goes to New York and works for that owner. I would be shocked if he does. I think the Jets were a little bit calmer under Chris Johnson than Woody Johnson. And Woody Johnson might be appointed as ambassador to Ireland again by President-elect Trump. So that could calm things down for the Jets. But I think Vrabel would rather go elsewhere. We'll see. You got to get yourself lined up with a contract that will be favorable and give you time and or money. Quarterback, let's see here. Chase says, quarterback, right tackle, edge, wide receiver. Such tough spots to fill, not to mention less important spots like free safety. You can find yourself a safety. You can convert a corner. Find yourself a safety. Quarterback, right tackle, edge, and wide receiver. Quarterback, edge, and wide receiver, 3 of the 4. Left tackle, hopefully you filled. Right tackle is a big deal. Tough spots to fill. That's why they make the big bucks. Really important spots to fill, and they don't have a 3rd round again, from what's looking like a bad trade. So something's going to go unaddressed in the high draft, and they're going to have to do some more work in free agency after they've given us a lot of reason to doubt what they could do in free agency with what they did in free agency and in the trade market. So we're going to have to see. If Rand, you want Rand to cook some more in the free agent market? Ocho says Rand needs to cook. Rand didn't cook very well in this free agent market. So, it's, if he's the guy who's pulling the strings next year, which I fully expect him to be, then you want him to continue to cook. Got to step lightly, or you burn some money, and you have guys who are, not particularly productive. First and foremost, they absolutely have to fix the offensive line. At least they have cap space with Levis on the rookie contract. Well, I don't know who the quarterback is next year. None of us do. But he's not going to be a super high-priced veteran. We know that. What they do in the draft is certainly, Vrabel's burner says, depending on what they can do in free agency. That's certainly the case. I don't know what they're going to be able to do in free agency. I haven't looked that far ahead to see what's available, but I guarantee you there's not a premier right tackle, there's not a premier wide receiver, there's not a premier quarterback, and there's not a premier edge rusher. Unless your only hope is that somebody's really up against the cap and has to let somebody go. Otherwise, there's something wrong with the guy that a team lets get to there. Saw a stat: the second worst statistical special teams unit of all time. That stat probably, Chase, would come from DVOA, from Football Outsiders, or the like. What's Callie going to say about it? I mean, Callie knows that special teams are bad, and he's been answering questions about the special teams being bad, and he doesn't have a heck of a lot to say about it, except that they need to get better. Goff apparently is playing horrifically bad. 5 interceptions. That's something. Tennessee Truth asks, on the TV broadcast, they kept calling the Titans one of the best defenses in the league. How can that be with no takeaways, few sacks, and giving up big plays? Because yardage-wise, the Titans are the top defense in the league, and people like to look at the simple stat of yardage and base things on that. And they don't give up a lot of yards. Well, you have some really odd things factor into not giving up a lot of yards. And they are, have been a good yardage defense. But when you give up all those return yards in the Detroit game, and Detroit gets the ball at the 28, the 27, the 22, the 25, Detroit doesn't have to drive very far to put up 52 points on you. So that helps you be a good yardage defense. But defenses, from the beginning of time have been judged. It's outdated means, or to judge it alone on yardage is bad. You have to look at points. You have to look at third down. You have to look at red zone. The Titans held them to 1 of 3 touchdowns in the red zone, and then let them in twice in the red zone after that. 3 of 5 in the red zone. Well, that's not a good percentage, 60%. Somebody asking about the pick in for number 1 now. Things are skewed because some people have had bye weeks and others have not. But certainly the Patriots winning and the Titans losing helps the Titans. Don't know the precise list right now, and also other teams have played an additional game. So the Titans are now 2-7. There might be some teams that are 2-8, so they would automatically be ahead of the Titans. Titans' strength of schedule, which needs to be weak to be high in a tie, is not going to be that high. Jaguars games will help, but many other teams on their schedule, like Minnesota, have good records. Houston, 2 games against Houston. Houston has a good record. It's not going to help their strength of schedule be low. Not going to help them in tiebreakers. So Titans haven't blocked a punt since Tim Shaw. Somebody's asking about blocked punt. Since Tim Shaw was on the team, which is a long time ago. Tankathon.com, Sergeant Bubbles mentioned, is the place to monitor. And Sergeant Bubbles here says Titans special teams is second worst ever behind 2010 Chargers, who also had the number 1 offense and defense in the NFL, but missed the playoffs at 9-7. Where's that from, please, Sergeant Bubbles? Where's that from? Please, let's cite our sources. CW, another team he has his eyes on for Braves is the Bears, but he doesn't know if he likes Caleb Williams. Well, I mean, Braves can only be so picky. He's not going to be able to go somewhere where he loves everything by any means. And I think Bears would be wise to hire an offensive guy. or hire, a head coach who's got a great offensive guy coming with him. And I don't know that Vrabel would qualify there. I think Monty Ossenfort, being asked here about how Monty Ossenfort's doing with the Cardinals, looks pretty good. Seems to have gotten back on track quickly, that team. Why didn't Amy give him serious consideration? Well, you can't ask it like, well, he's done well with the Cardinals, so why didn't she give him good consideration? I mean, that's hindsight. So we didn't know how he's going to do there. I thought Monty Ossenfort was a good candidate, but I think he was a John Robinson guy. So if she was going to hire one of the internal guys, she was probably going to hire Ryan Cowden. And Ryan Cowden was more Vrabel's guy. It would have been hard to hire John Robinson's guy based on the ending with John Robinson. Google/Wikipedia, Sergeant Bubbles is telling me. But Google isn't a source of its own. Google doesn't have information. Google takes you somewhere. So Sergeant Bubbles, I shouldn't have cited his information because he's not citing a good place for it to have come from. And Wikipedia also isn't a stat source. It's citing something else. So Sergeant Bubbles is struggling with understanding information on the internet. You heard it on Pardon My Take. And on Pardon My Take, they got it from somewhere. Likely it's in DVOA, and DVOA is from Football Outsiders. Titans need a lot of pieces. Ocho says tight ends aren't good either. They're not, though the last couple of weeks they've done a good job with them. Hey, we are heading on 48 minutes in. It's getting a little chilly out here. I'm getting a little nervous. I'm going to get locked out of the press box where my stuff is. And I think we've jammed a lot in. The audience is quite good. I appreciate all of you coming. You need to sign up for paulkuharsky.com. Blake Bedingfield will have a review of this game and tell us from a scouting perspective what he saw. Mike Herndon will have something big on Tuesday. And we will continue along the week to bring you great content from all three of us. I will be on tomorrow afternoon with Braden Gall after we hear from Brian Callahan on a football show, also part of the 440 Sports Network. You need to eat at and check out Edley's. Order it in. Go to one of their 8 restaurants around Nashville. Pig out and buy. Take a friend. Can't go wrong. I really appreciate all of you that come here so religiously and regularly. I hope they stop throwing interceptions in this late game, and I'll see you back in Nashville tomorrow afternoon. Don't block the box, and be sure, please, to lock your locks. Thanks very, very much.